Welcome to the Project Discovery presentation here at Fanfest, and welcome to Reykjavik. My name is CCP Berger, and I'm a producer at CCP, and I've kind of been responsible for Project Discovery, rolling it out, and so on and so forth. So today we're going to talk Project Discovery and kind of, the first month of Project Discovery. We want to split the talk into three. First, I'm going to talk about just kind of general overview of Project Discovery. Then Attila is going to come. He's from MMOS, and he's going to talk about citizen science and show some really nice graphs. And then Emma Lundberg, Professor Lundberg, in person on this stage to show some more graphs, science, and more graphs. It's amazing. We'll have a roundtable at 3 o'clock. Make sure to show up there. And we're probably going to do most of the Q&A at that roundtable. So, yeah. So, what is this Project Discovery thing? Project Discovery is a capsuleer science project where we are mapping microscopic images of drifted DNA collected by Sisters of Eve. And we're doing this to help them uncover the mysteries surrounding the drifters, their origin, and their advanced weaponry. This project is led by Professor Lundberg. But, for reals, what is Project Discovery? For reals. Project Discovery is a citizen science project mapping the subcellular protein atlas from human protein atlas, led by Professor Lundberg. Inception sound. When you play Project Discovery, you will help scientists understand protein functions in cells by recognizing patterns in protein localizations within colorful fluorescent microscopic images. Whew. I had like a short version on the screen. It's very. So this project is a collaboration project between CCP, MMOS, Human Protein Atlas, and Reykjavik University. There are actually a couple of people missing from this slide, but it's a really fun and interesting project, and it's actually great, combining the science field, the university, and then, hardcore gaming. But, I can see it in your eyes. You guys are like, how does this Project Discovery thing work? Like, complete blank. So basically, this is your laboratory in space. On your left, you have a sample image from Human Protein Atlas or Sisters of Eve. Depends which side of reality you are on. And on the other side, you have 5 parent categories that are then further split into sub-categories. You look at the green in the sample image, and then you pick the subcategories it fits. It might be 1, 2, or 3, depending on the sample given. Then your answer is submitted and analyzed against all the other answers that are submitted for that sample. And therefore, we get like a crowdsourced answer. We then give you feedback on your submission. In this sample here, we actually show you a pre-solved answer, or as we call it, a gold standard. We use these to actually calculate your accuracy that then kind of affect your awards. And we actually give you ISK and experience point that then contribute to your rank. You can then, every time you actually go up a rank, you get analysis credits that you can spend in the Sisters of Eve loyalty store. Whew, that was long, but. So, Project Discovery and EVE Online. Why in the world? Well, first off, because we love science. We're huge science buffs at CCP, and I mean, for myself, this is kind of the first kind of citizen science-esque project that I fell in love with. This was like late 90s. This is SETI at home, if you don't know it. Me and my best friend used to spend hours looking at these beautiful graphs up here, looking for aliens in space on dial-up internet with fax, because fax is the only way to connect with aliens. And we had some really interesting phone bills from that period. But we were kind of looking at this, and we were talking about this, and we were actually role-playing this. Thinking all day, like, what in the world we could do when the aliens would come. How could we, say hi or whatever. So obviously we were playing XCOM Apocalypse to, be ready for the invasion. But one of the issues with Serie Atom was that there was no real interaction. So this was like this kind of actually lived in my head for years. And when MMOS contacted CCP, this was like a dream come true. Finally, we got to merge, this hardcore science and this awesome hardcore game that we have. So super interesting game design challenge. And last off, we believe that this is a first step into something much bigger. Like we hope that we can set an example for other gaming companies to do the same, and help science, because science. So the rollout. We rolled the first version of Project Discovery out on CC, January 22nd. We got 22,000 classifications in the first weekend. We were super stoked. We were we couldn't believe how, this was happening. We got some awesome feedback, and we did a lot of tweaks, hardening, and balancing. And then we rolled it out on TQ on March 10th. And the rollout was huge. And the MMOS servers were not the happiest. One caveat here, MMOS is actually 2 guys, one kind of a business type of a guy, and 1 server guy. So Attila did a great job, keeping things almost alive. So the first 24 hours, we got 463,936 classifications in the first hours. So service sideways. 14,500 images reached consensus, and 45 combat suits got sold within the first 24 hours. And this was the most expensive stuff we put in the store, and we were sure that this was going to be it would take weeks. I mean, players are never going to build a Paladin. MMOS actually posted a blog after the first 24 hours, and they listed out the top 3 players, and they had question marks. So here are the top 3 players from the first 23 hours. Urel, Bergman, and Submate, awesome job. Yay for them, woo! But I also want to give a special shout out to Sono. He was the first player to actually get the combat suit. This took few hours, super close call. The next combat suit was sold within 6 minutes. So that's the difference between a hot pocket and boiling a pasta. So kudos to Sono. So here are some of the results from the first month. First off, you guys are awesome, just plain and simple awesome. We have millions of classifications. I'm not going to tell you the number just yet. Last time we posted a tweet, it was 4.5 million submissions, but Attila wants to have some light to shine and some reason to stick around. It took 3 weeks to reach the first round consensus on the data. We had planned 2 or 3 months, but 3 weeks, you really seem to like science. And the science community is following us super closely. They're basically breathing down our neck. They're very excited, and more on that later. So going forward, we've reached the consensus on the first data set, or the first run of the data set. So now what happens is that we'll actually run a consensus on the consensus. Inception sound. We do this to strengthen our data for science, and we also use this as a tool to make Project Discovery better. So when we actually, look at new data sets or different types of data sets, we actually have some tools at our disposal that we can, do it, so we can do it better, quicker. But you don't have to worry, you won't see the same image twice. If it matters, I don't know. Post-Citadel, so we'll start to look at more awards and rewards. And then we will start to dive into new data sets, but more on that later this year. Since you guys are doing so freaking well in Project Discovery, we've actually decided to add 10 new ranks coming really soon to a product discovery near you, and reaching from rank 1 through to rank 1,000. I mean, didn't someone talk about 1,000% yesterday? I don't know what the deal is about 1,000 these days. It's a great number. So here are the top 3 product discovery contributors as of Tuesday morning. Mariones, Barasuk, and Bergman. And here are their ranks. Are you ready? Boom! That's 1,139, 715, and 619. I think these guys need a round of applause. Awesome, 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 awesome job. We've actually dropped like multiple hours trying to figure out if Mariones is a bot or not, because if that person is a bot, we need to talk. It's a really good bot. So, I just got this slide like okayed like 3 minutes before I entered the hall. We're going to have a little project discovery tournament at the project discovery booth. It's a casual, not necessarily a 3-minute game, but a short game with leaderboards. And there will be a product discovery science-off on Saturday at 1. Science-off, much cooler than all other tournaments. Woo! But that's enough of me. Let's bring out some proper scientists with some proper graph porn. I guess that's why you're here. Thanks all.
Which is the next one? Hello, and thank you, Berger. So yes, my name is Attila Sonner. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Massively Multiplayer Online Science, which is actually a real-life corporation, not an in-game corporation. And originally, I'm coming from Hungary. That's why the somewhat strange-sounding name. And I moved to Switzerland a couple of years ago, and there I founded, with a friend of mine, Bernard Revaz, MMOS. So what MMOS is doing? We're doing citizen science. And I guess most of you, by now, after 1 month of project discovery, are familiar with the term, but I wanted to sum it up a bit. So citizen science is when us outsiders help scientific research by doing tasks like image classification, feature recognition, things that us humans are very good at. I always found it fascinating that with formal education in the field, we can actually do meaningful contribution to these research topics. Citizen science is sometimes considered to be a form of scientific crowdsourcing. And yes, that's a very important part of it. I mean, the data that we provide is valuable for scientists, either they use it directly or to feed them in machine learning algorithms. But I believe that citizen science is much more than that. Many cases, the educational aspect and the scientific outreach is almost as important as the data itself. These guys, like Emma and her team, are super enthusiastic to tell us, to let us understand what they're doing in their day-to-day research. And that's very interesting and very important. For one thing, they love what they do, that's their passion. But also, from a strategical point of view, I think for science it's very important that the general public understands why these research topics are so important. So as great citizen science as it is, there are some challenges. And the biggest challenge is the long-term engagement of users. So that's how we came to the picture with MMOS. We had this original concept, this hypothesis, that if we take these scientific problems and put them into major already existing video games as a seamless gaming experience, asking the experts in game industry to help us to make this experience entertaining and engaging, the maybe will be able to convert a tiny fraction of the time that we spend with gaming to something useful in science. And I think here I don't have to tell you how much time we spend with gaming. So even a tiny fraction of that is amazing in science and in citizen science. And after 1 month of project discovery, I can confidently say that this is actually working very well, so much that I think this is going to be the next big revolution in citizen science. So thank you all for this, what you have achieved in the last month. I also wanted to mention you that, as Berger said, this is a first step. Project discovery is a very good, very big first step. But it's a first step. We are very determined to bring citizen science to online communities. And in that process, we already started to work together with the University of Geneva to bring citizen science, real-life tasks into one of their online courses. Again, a very enthusiastic group of people who want to learn something in an exoplanet course, actually. And also in mid-March, we announced our cooperation with Gearbox Software to bring citizen science in their titles, probably the Borderlands series, yet to be decided. So it's a super interesting time. But let's get down to business and let's see what you're all here for, some juicy numbers and graphs. So when I was preparing for this presentation, I was dreaming about these beautiful animated graphs, and like CCP Quant has shown us yesterday, or even some action. Probably you've seen the film, the documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, where Al Gore is even climbing ladder to stress his point that how dramatic the change of CO2 level in our atmosphere. But unfortunately, the Health and Safety Department of Iceland strictly prohibited any foolishness, so I came up with a much simplistic way, like this. And with this, I wanted to show you a little bit of tweet history. This was the first number that I tweeted about project discovery. This was the first day we hit almost 500,000 classifications, which was pretty amazing. That was the moment when we saw that this might actually work. After 1 week, we posted an amazing 2.2 million classifications. The next one was a happy 4.5 million classifications, not just because it's a huge number, but also because that was the point where we could actually say that we solved all the performance issues of project discovery. And I think this was the last tweet that I did. So now we're here at Fanfest. There is no reason to hide the new numbers. So if you're ready, here it comes. Well, for you. Actually, we hit this almost 8 million classifications. I was thinking to talk to Hilmar to push Fanfest a week later so we can announce that we are over the 8 million, but that didn't work. So this is amazing. This is really awesome. I wanted to put this number into context for you. I just talked to Chris Lintott a couple of days ago. He's the founder of Zooniverse, unquestionably the biggest citizen science platform of today. And when I told him that we're going to announce around 8 million classifications at Fanfest, he told me that 8 million is a very big number according to their standards too. So I think we can confidently say that project discovery is among the biggest citizen science efforts of today. So thank you for that. So I offered some graphs, and here's the first one, just to dig a bit deeper into classifications. This is classifications per day. What you see here is that we started at that 500,000 classifications. That was a very strong start. Numbers have dropped since, but what we're very interested in is where is that plateau where we can say that, now this is business as usual. And I think it's still early to say anything about that, but you see that the graph is evening out at around 150,000 classifications, which is over our most optimistic estimate. I think mine was the highest bet with 100,000 classifications, so it's even higher than that. Also, I have to tell you that, of course, quantity doesn't mean anything without quality. But we are in a luxurious situation because, people who are doing citizen science for 15 years have proven us that citizen science actually works. It doesn't mean that we don't want to increase the quality of data for this specific human protein atlas research project. We do want to do that. But if we accept that citizen science works, then it means that the classifications are a very important metric, because that shows what is the throughput capability of a citizen science system. And if we actually can reach a level, as I told you, a plateau or business as usual working, then that is something unprecedented in citizen science, because then citizens or scientists can come to us and we can say confidently that, we can analyze these 1 million images in 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks' time. That's something that they can calculate with. So that's amazing. Going a bit more into detail, I wanted to show you the 30 days of classifications per minute graph. That's kind of a footprint of the history of project discovery. It contains a lot of interesting data, and since it's an account of history, I thought to spice it up with some personal documents like this one. This is very happy people from the project discovery group. It was before launch, so it's a prequel to the history. From left to right, you see Devin Sullivan, aka HPA Dijkroik, then Bergur, then Hjalti Leifsson. He is a CCP Wonder Boy. He is ex-Reykjavik University, now a veteran developer of the team. And then Scott Rhodes, CCP Paradox from Quality Assurance, and also MPC Professor Landberg. And the team is super happy here, not just because of the beers that Devin and Bergur are looking at with so much love in their eyes, but also because we're just finishing the final polishings of Project Discovery. We were very happy with what we had. And also we anticipated no problems whatsoever. And then we launched the software and, as they say, shit hit the fence. And that's what I call the bloodbath of MMOS. If anybody tells you that the biggest PvP event in EVE history is World War B, then that's a straight lie, because actually that was the biggest PvP event in EVE history. It was only me on one side and all of you on the other, so it was it was definitely not a balanced fight. And here is the story of the day. I got podded twice, actually. Once we had to change the database instance, once the storage type, which took like 3 hours. It was quite nerve-wracking. And from this day, I have this image. The timing was just simply perfect. I was sitting on a bus traveling to Montreal, and I'm trying to stay alive. So after this came a 10-day period, which I call aftermath. In that 10-day, we tried to fix the system. We tried to find the performance bottlenecks, the bugs. It was like, every 2 days, a eureka moment. That, yes, I have it. And then, I tweeted it that, okay, we solved the problem. 1 hour later, nope, again, it went down. So it was quite a tiring 10 days. On your side, I think it was super frustrating also because, you saw system outages, timeouts, lost sessions. So I'm really grateful for all the patience that I got from your side in the period. And for these 10 days, I found this photo. It was at GDC. This is with a friend of mine from Hungary, and we're scratching our heads with really troubled faces, trying to see what the hell is going on. And finally, we managed to solve it. And we just were about to open a bottle of champagne where we had a hardware failure in the cloud, combined with a monitoring bug, 7 hours of downtime, and then we had a proxy failure. So I don't have a picture for that, but you can imagine me there shouting using all my 4-letter word vocabulary. But finally, we stabilized the system, and I really hope that in Eve Client you see now a stable, responsive project discovery. So some slides about quality, scores. I created a graph like that. This is actually very interesting. In this graph, every dot represents a group of players, and they're grouped by the accuracy score. The darker the score, the darker the dot, the lower the score is. On the horizontal axis, you see the number of players who are in that certain group. And on the vertical axis, you see the classification count that specific group has submitted together. So I don't know what is your first thought, your first association when you see this graph, but this was mine. The Hirschsprung-Russell diagram of stars, so I decided to create the Hirschsprung-Russell diagram of project discovery. Here you see that we have the brown dwarfs, brown because the dots are brown, and dwarfs because there are not too many players in those groups and not too many classifications, which is a very good sign. My hypothesis is that it's simply hitting rock bottom is simply a one-time fun. It's not even griefing. Then we have two main sequences, which is really interesting because the Hirschsprung-Russell diagram has only one, but then if you remember that it has nothing to do with astronomy, then it makes sense. And there's two very interesting parts in that. One is that there is a high user number at around the 50% accuracy score, which is normal because we all start at the 50% accuracy score. But more interestingly, the second sequence, which is on the top, meaning that there are more classifications in that, are the players who have higher accuracy scores, and that is very, very good news. Then we have the white giants. Those are players with high accuracy scores and a lot of classifications by the thousands. And then there is a shining star of supergiants. These guys are with the highest accuracy scores. There are around 1,000 players in this group, and they have something like 2.5 million classifications altogether, so pretty amazing. Yes. This pattern is quite common in many services, and in citizen science too. There is a small group of people who are super committed and doing a large part of the effort. And I was really interested, what is the distribution in project discovery? And so I created this graph, and here you see that the players, the 1/10 of the players that are most active in project discovery are doing 65% of the classifications. That seems to be very high, but this is much better than in most citizen science projects. In many citizen science projects, actually, we can't even call it crowdsourcing, it's rather club sourcing because it's so few people who are really contributing the project. So this is much healthier than that. Also, what's nice to see is that you see the average scores in each group, and this group who is providing the 65% of classifications have a score of over 90%. That is super high. I mean, I'm playing a lot with project discovery. I don't have 90% score. I think even CCP Wonderboy doesn't have 90% score. So that's really high. That's a lot of work to do. He does. Okay. So that was all my graphs. The question is, what's next? First of all, we want to incorporate new projects. This is, of course, a long, careful planning. So what we're shooting for is probably at the end of this year, in an ideal situation, we'll have a couple of new projects. So we'll have a choice of different topics, different difficulty levels. You can choose to support exoplanet research or cancer research or, I don't know, maybe cosmological background radiation research. Then improvements. As I told you, we want to improve the quality of the results. One big area of improvement is the consensus calculation. Now we're using, and a big thank you for that for Devin at Human Protein Atlas, his algorithm, which is actually a very aggressive one. So we set it to 12 classifications, the minimum number of classifications that we want to have with a certain task, with a certain image. And we actually are able to close many, many tasks with 12 or 13 classifications. But we want to see those locations where the locations are harder to see. Then there is the task allocation. There's a lot of space for improvement there too. For example, when we see that it's hard to reach consensus, then we can channel that task to users who have higher accuracy score, kind of to get an expert opinion. Then tutorials. There was a lot of critique about tutorials. We knew it's not perfect. That's what we could do in the time frame. And also training task, which is really interesting because now in the system the training tasks are clear-cut cases. And we saw that when you finished with the training, the unsolved images are much harder. There are multiple locations, the images are not so clear, so we want to work on that too. And some final words. You have to see that what we're doing is gaming history and citizen science history as well. This is the first time that a serious game got incorporated into a major video game. This is probably the first time that high-profile scientific journals are publishing screenshots from EVE Online. That happened in Nature Methods. This is the first time that an acting scientist is an NPC character in the game. And this is the first time that we'll have a live PvP citizen science tournament just here at HARPA. So thank you all for all the effort. Thank you all for all the brain power that you put into Project Discovery. Thank you all for me having the possibility to be part of it. And please welcome NPC Professor Landberg on stage. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. It's my first time at Fanfest, and I'm excited to tell you about the science behind Project Discovery. As Attila said, it's the scientific community following us very closely, and they're wondering if the EVE players are going to provide high-quality data. So I'll get to that, but first a little introduction to those of you that don't know what we're trying to do here. So why do we want to study proteins? If we have a look at the central dogma of molecular biology, this is how information is transferred in biological systems. We have our DNA that carries the code for how to build and assemble proteins. The proteins are the molecules that perform almost all functions in our body. So they are the actual doers. And 15 years ago, the Human Genome Project was finished. And even though it's such a long time ago, we still don't even know what the proteins, our 20,000 genes, code for, what these proteins do. So this is what we're trying to find out in the Human Protein Atlas project. And humans are built in a very clever way. We're compartmentalized into functional entities. So we have specialized organs like the liver and the brain that are built up by tissues and specialized cells that perform specific functions. And in these cells, there are organelles that perform specific functions. And in these organelles, there are molecules that are needed to perform this function, such as proteins. So one way to try to get clues on how to understand protein function is to try to map where in our body we can find the proteins. And this is what we're trying to do in the Human Protein Atlas project. And of course, there are many different ways of studying proteins. This is the way we're doing it. We're highlighting one protein at a time. This is a high-resolution confocal microscope image of human cells. The protein of interest is shown in green. And I know my cell biology, so I know that this is a pattern of actin filaments. And that gives me clues about the function of this protein, because I know that actin filaments are needed for keeping the shape of the cell and are important for movement of the cell. So we generate images like this, and we classify the patterns. And since we have 20,000 genes and a lot of different cell types, that makes a lot of images. This is why we need you. So the Human Protein Atlas project is large Swedish research projects that aims to create a map, an atlas of protein distribution in human tissues and cells. It was started in 2003, and it consists of 4 different sub-atlases. The tissue atlas, subcellular atlas, the cancer atlas, and the cell line atlas. And I'm director for the subcellular atlas, and this is the images that are included in the game also. And we're funded by a non-profit foundation under the conditions that all the results that we generate should be publicly available to the research community, and that's why we decided to build a database. So on proteinatlas.org, you can find the Protein Atlas database, where we have all these images and our classifications of the patterns. This database is used by about 100,000 researchers every month all over the world, and in average there is 2 scientific publications every day that contains data from the Protein Atlas. So we are making a difference, we hope. And this is what it looks like behind the scenes at SciLife Lab. This is our everyday work. It's a regular lab. And this is the team behind it. And then you might wonder, so why do we need your help, since we're generating the images and we're classifying them? And of course, we don't want to waste your time. So we want to reanalyze the images, because we realized that there are more details in these images than we have classified. So you are classifying 27 different patterns, and we have only classified 20. You're also helping us to identify cell-to-cell variations. And since this is the first time that a citizen science project is implemented into an existing game, it's also good that we have our classifications, because we can measure your performance and your accuracy and tweak the game to try to get the best possible data out of it. And for those of you that haven't played the game, I can just show you some images to let you know what it looks like. So you have some landmarks. This is the nucleus. It's always shown in blue. It's the DNA. And then we have the microtubules that extends out in the cell and outlines the cytoplasm. And then you have a green pattern, and it's always the green pattern you're supposed to classify. This is the protein of interest. And this is a typical plasma membrane pattern. And this is an actual cytoplasmic pattern. Those of you that played the game, you know what I mean. This is not a cytoplasmic pattern. This is mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, and this is also actin filaments, but it looks a bit different because this is a different cell type. So, are you ready to see the results? Yay, good. So, the participation and the number of classifications, it's been amazing. Attil already showed you this number, almost 8 million classifications. And the time that the EVE players have spent doing this, I think, is even more amazing. 18.2 million minutes. Wow. That's 34.7 years, non-stop. And in Swedish measures, that makes 163 working years. In 6 weeks, it's mind-blowing. So we can conclude that EVE players are fast, you're apparently tireless, amazing, but you're also players. It didn't take very long until you realized how to game the game. And after, I'll show you this plot. So here you can see the distribution of classifications over the different classes. Project discovery data shown in red, HPA data in blue. And what really pops out here is the overrepresentation of cytoplasmic classifications. So after a few days, you realized that half of all classifications were cytoplasm. And at that time point, your accuracy was calculated based on the consensus with other players, and your rewards scales with the accuracy. So just clicking cytoplasm gave good rewards. So this is not good for the research data. We want accurate, high-quality data. So we decided to change the way we calculate the accuracy and not go with the consensus, but instead inject control images for this. And then we could see that the cytoplasmic frequency rapidly dropped again. So we could control this cytoplasmic spamming at this point, at least. And if we then have a look at the quality of the data, this plot shows the full coverage of your classifications compared to the HPA classifications. And the y-axis here goes from 40% to 60%. But you need to be aware of that since we're classifying a different number of classes, the maximum full coverage could be 70%, so it can never go higher than that. So this is quite good to start with, but I would just like to highlight some different things. So if we start from the beginning, day one, we start with about 47% full coverage. That's good. And then it drops, cytoplasmic spamming. These were the worst 2 days. And this day was the last day when we calculated the accuracy based on the consensus. So you can see that after that, it gets better again. And now, the last few weeks, we've really seen a stable level. Now we know the baseline. So now we believe that this is the time to start and tweak and fine-tune the game to see how we can best do citizen science. And the first thing that we're going to implement this week is another 5,000 control images to be injected in the game. And these will mainly be images of proteins with multiple locations, as is shown here, and also more hard and even ugly images, because this is something that the players have been asking for. So we hope that this can help you to understand how we want you to classify the images better. And if we have a deeper look at the actual results, this is a confusion matrix. You can see the perfect matches between the HPA classifications on the y-axis and the game classifications on the x-axis. The perfect matches are in the diagonal. And I would just like to highlight some interesting findings so far. So in this corner, the upper right corner, you can see quite a lot of off-diagonal activity. But this is really good, because you are helping us to sub-classify the nuclear patterns. This is what we want you to do. Same thing here for the nucleoli patterns, you're sub-classifying. We can also see that it's hard for the players to distinguish between the microtubule organizing center and the centrosome. They're very similar to each other. So for this purpose, we have carefully selected new control images for these locations to help you with this. You've also found a lot of images where you see cell-to-cell variation, mainly in the nucleus. And you have a lot of new rods and rings findings. So this is what we are most excited about in the results, and I'll show you some examples of it. So this is 4 different nuclear proteins. In the protein atlas now, they're all classified as being located to the nucleus. And you have now helped us to refine this and classified this protein to be in nuclear bodies, this one in nuclear speckles, this one in nucleus and the rim of nucleoli, and this one in the nucleus. For biologists, this is very important information, and it's worth a lot. You also found many images like this, where the green pattern varies between cells. We have variation, and the most likely explanation for this variation is that the protein expression pattern varies over the cell division cycle. So you're actually finding an interesting set of proteins to investigate further to try to understand cell division, which is an essential part of life and also very important if you want to study cancer and development of cancer. And this is my favorite part, the rods and rings. It's a fairly uncharacterized cellular structure. It can be formed and disassembled. It has 3 known protein components, and it's also known that it can be induced by a very common antiviral drug, but the function is not really understood. And when we had a look at the first 6 weeks of project discovery data, you've actually helped us to identify 109 new proteins to this structure. This is amazing. So we will investigate these further, do experimental validation, and hopefully this can contribute to us understanding what the function of this structure really is. So stay tuned. And our overall aim in the subcellular protein atlas is to map all human proteins, the distribution of all human proteins in a cell, in order to try to understand, well, cell biology, how the cell works. And at the end of this year, December 4th, we'll release a new version of the atlas where project discovery classifications will be included. And there will also be a poster in Science at the same date. So this was Attila's final words. This is gaming history. This is citizen science history. I would like to add, let's make science history too. And it's great to be here. I'm not the only one. The rest of the HPA project discovery team is here. We have dichroic, illuminator, dark field, and polarizer. You can meet us all up in our booth. And please join the tournament. It's actually really fun and stressful. And come to the Science Off, and where we have 4 finalists for that. And if you're interested in the results, you can check our blogs with weekly updates. And we're also happy to answer all questions on Reddit. And yes, there is amazing prizes for the Science Off too. So please join. And we're all very proud to be part of this and amazed by your community and your reactions. So for instance, we have a player that is comparing us with potato chips. That's great. Another player that started to read scientific articles, even greater. And you're writing poems about cells. It's amazing. We love it. Big thanks to all of you from all of us, and also a big thanks to the HPA Project Discovery team with Devin, Michaela, Lovisa, Rutger, and Martin that are here. Keep up the good work. Thanks.